Right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's BRCC seminar on the cloud. I'm Neil McGregor. Till 10 days ago, I was chairman of the chamber. I haven't managed to escape yet. I've just been re-elected as a director of the chamber. So I've been asked to introduce this morning's speakers from Ixodron. Now, I'm very well qualified to be attending today's session because I know absolutely nothing about the subject of this webinar. So to learn about the cloud and how it can make a difference to your computing and your business, you're in the right place if you're here. Just a reminder, this session is being recorded. If you have questions, you have a chat box. I know one of you has already discovered the chat box. Please put your questions there. There'll be time for questions at the end. We're going to make this available later through chamber channels. So if you've got questions, don't be afraid to ask, because any daft question is the question you don't ask. And on that basis, I'm going to ask George from Ixodron to come and introduce his colleagues as our speakers. George, good morning.
Good morning, Neil. Good morning, everybody. First of all, thank you for being here, being with us. Also, I would like to thank BRCC and Neil for this opportunity. They are a great partner in promoting our events and in helping companies getting better connection into the business environment. So, few words about Ixodron. You might say we are an IT company, but we are more than that, meaning that we do not only provide IT solutions, but we are able to accompany a business through their business challenges, meaning using IT solutions to increase operational efficiency or to increase revenue, to boost customer experience, or to ensure operational continuity, just to name a few of the things we can do. As I said, we are covering a great spectrum. So we are doing IT infrastructure. We are doing also automation of processes, RPA, and we are also doing cyber security. We are partners with one of the leading technologies companies in the world. And yeah, today we will focus on multi-cloud infrastructure. Why multi-cloud? Because IT, it's not just a necessity in companies today, but it's a way, it's a mean to help companies boost their business. So combining the two worlds, on-prem data center and also cloud, it's a necessity nowadays. And with this, I will introduce the panelists and I would let them explain more about hybrid multi-cloud infrastructure. With us today are Goran, which is a data center and networking architect and expert. He has a bachelor and master degree in computer networking and communications from the Faculty of Computing, Belgrade, Serbia. And he's also co-founder of Netcast, a cloud and managed services provider, and a consultant for major US multi-cloud vendors. Goran still finds joy in working as a teaching assistant at the Faculty of Computing in Belgrade in areas distributed computing, data center infrastructure, and networking. He's also a trainer, certified trainer for Cisco and Nutanix. And the other panelist is Octavian Drugu, our colleague, who is a networking also and data center expert, specialized in architecture and solutions design. He joined the Ixodron with the aim to help companies modernize their infrastructure and meet new operational challenges. So he's also a Cisco and Nutanix certified expert. This is as an introduction from me. Thank you again for being here, and I will let the panelists begin. Thanks again.
Hi everyone. Hi George. Thanks for your kind introduction. So let's just get started with Nutanix Hypercloud multi-platform. So to begin with, I like to say that nowadays everything starts from application, because application are what is meaningful for end users, and they are very important for business owners. But in order to run application in a performant way, to offer proper quality of experience to the end users, we need intelligently designed infrastructure. And this is one of the main reasons why everyone is talking about what is called these days hybrid convergent infrastructure, or HCI. Basically, the idea is that we would like to have the benefits of the public cloud architecture, such as simplicity of deploying, simplicity of scaling, unified management of the infrastructure. We want our infrastructure to be agile and flexible, and to be optimally sized to our needs. We do not want to overspend or to underspend, because the application performance will suffer and our user will suffer, and that the bottom line is that our business is the one that will suffer too. So we want to draw inspiration from the hyperscaled public cloud providers like Google, but of course in real life we want to be able to run this kind of apps within the confidence of our own data center and within our on-prem infrastructure. Basically, the ultimate goal that we seek are the benefits of public cloud, but within our own data center. Of course, we still want to keep these two infrastructures connected for many reasons. Perhaps today you are not leveraging public cloud, but who knows what tomorrow will bring. And maybe we want to expand into public cloud, or maybe you have some new project and the cloud is the only or the best solution. And at some point of time, you'll need it. Even if you are not using the public cloud today, when you are building your on-prem infrastructure, you should be able to have public cloud in your mind. So the kind of infrastructure that you are building will be on-prem, and it will be compatible with public cloud. The challenges behind these hybrid cloud infrastructures are multidimensional. First and foremost, we start with the traditional challenges like managing our own infrastructure. Sorry for this. Like our own infrastructure, where we typically over-provision the resources behind the application because we don't have a transparent monitoring of resource usage. Basically, this means that you have many wasted resources and a lot of capital which you already invested. Also, another big challenge is managing your on-prem infrastructure. Of course, is complexity. And when you bring public cloud into the picture alongside with your own complex on-prem infrastructure, the challenges become even greater. This is what Nutanix had in mind when they designed their solution. So with Nutanix, as you will see, there are multiple ways that you could accomplish such a purpose. Nutanix is generally known as being an HCI vendor, HCI meaning Hyperconvergent Infrastructure vendor. And that is how Nutanix started. They started by building cloud like on-prem hyperscaled infrastructure. Basically, this is an architecture like the one that is used by Google, but only that is it used as an enterprise architecture. So the first stepping stone, this is the first stepping stone. With this, you get hardware consolidation, meaning increased infrastructure efficiency and increased cost efficiency. Secondly, you get agility, and you can easily expand your infrastructure incrementally, so you do not need to double your capacity or throw away your old equipment at some point of time. And of course, it is not just about hardware consolidation and incremental consume of those resources, but it is also about software simplification. And as you need help from the support to manage infrastructure and applications, helping to plan, to scale out, to making upgrades, and so on. And the on-prem infrastructure and public cloud should be completely connected. So you begin with on-prem, but if there is a need later, you can easily extend into the public cloud as well. As I was saying before, Nutanix started as a ACI vendor, but today Nutanix is much more than this. There is a whole ecosystem of additional tools and services built on top of the foundational infrastructure layer. All these services are meant to support your storage needs, your application needs, and your hybrid cloud needs. And all these different tools that we will talk about in this upcoming slides, they are mutually integrated with each other, and of course they are integrated with Nutanix infrastructure, which is hosted in your data center, and of course also they are integrated as well with the major hyperscale providers. So when Nutanix said cloud, it refers primarily to your on-prem cloud, but all these Nutanix tools and services are mostly infrastructure agnostic, so they can treat your on-prem infrastructure in the same way that they will treat your public cloud infrastructure. The first thing that you get with Nutanix software, regardless of the hardware that it is running on, whether it is on your private data center or on a public cloud, you get the same cloud infrastructure. Second, on the top of that, you get all of the additional services like different storage services, different solutions for automatically deploying your application, for easier database management, for data protection, and for much more than I can show you in this slide. For example, we have Frame, which is a cloud-like desktop as a service solution. We have Calm, which is doing the app automatization. We have Beam, which is doing multi-cloud cost control and security compliance, or Flow, which enables network security, and so on. So with Nutanix, you take advantage of complete package. You start with the infrastructure and choose additional services and tools that you need. And this infrastructure can run either on-prem or in public cloud. And then you can deploy all enterprise apps on top of it. It all started with VDI, which was the very first use case, but nowadays it's running all the major enterprise application, as you'll see in the later slides. So let's talk about the great journey of getting there. We have a 3-step journey, which usually starts with infrastructure modernization. I'm saying usually, but it's not a rule, because after all, Nutanix is a software company, and it has its pure software solutions and pure software services, which will not depend on Nutanix hardware infrastructure. But usually it starts with your on-prem data center modernization. So this is the path that we will follow to discover the capabilities of Nutanix software stack. So what does infrastructure modernization means? It means that instead of having the traditional 3-tier data center architecture, you'll have a simplified hardware consolidation cluster. So a simple cluster with x86 servers with intelligent software that is on top of it. From the hardware layer, you get consolidation and the efficiency, which mean less money and more performance. And from the software side of things, you get the automatization in deploying and managing your cluster. You are provided with a complete streamlined workflow for installing Nutanix cluster, which takes less than one hour in real life. And you get the ability to easily manage everything from a single console called Prism. And on top of the centralized management, because these days it's not just about centralized management, there is a touch of machine learning, which will help you to manage your application and infrastructure. And the management console is not just centralized and user-friendly, but it is also practical, and it is relating to the Nutanix support in real time. So what this means for the end users and for administrators? It means that you will not have to leave the comfort of your single Prism console when you are managing your infrastructure. Regardless of where it resides, you will have the same console. Why it is so simple to deploy? Well, An advantage is that is no more a centralized storage areas. As you can see, you have just a cluster of x86 servers. So with these Nutanix offer you a complete package that contains bare metal, software, support, and also virtualization. And even if all major hypervisor like VMware, SXI, Hyper-V, Citrix, or Zen Server are supported, Nutanix includes offer his own supervisor called AHV. In terms of scaling, one of the big advantages behind Nutanix is that it supports heterogeneous clusters. This means that different nodes with different capabilities can coexist within a singular cluster. So one node can be storage heavy and the other node can be compute only with just some CPUs and the storage capacity and so on. Nutanix is making these heterogeneous clusters because you cannot predict your needs in advance, and it is hard to dimension your infrastructure for 5 years in advance. So with Nutanix, you do not have to do that. You can start with a small cluster, like 3 nodes, that is the minimum for standard clusters, and you can increment node by node, and each node can be configured to those specific needs at that point of time that you need them. So you do not need to over provision your infrastructure and to buy in advance. And as a bonus, you do not need to plan manually because we have machine learning, and the machine learning mechanism analyze your current needs and will specify appropriate hardware requirements that you will need. Regardless of the cluster configuration, your cluster is self-healing and optimized at all time. This is a big Nutanix advantage compared to traditional competitors like VxRail and Cisco HyperFlex. It is the only one that who can truly support heterogeneous clusters. And it is unique in another aspect because you have the freedom of choice. You can choose the hardware or the cloud provider. You can choose the virtualization, even if there are Nutanix appliances. You can choose on what to spend. You can spend, for instance, on heavy storage. You can spend on storage only or on compute only, and so on. You can choose whatever you want to spend. And also, with each new node that you have in the cluster, as you start to expand the cluster, the cluster size and the storage capacity, what happens automatically is that your storage performance are also increased. This is a key for properly implementing HCI infrastructure. And the more that you expand and you create not only more storage, but you create also more resources and more virtual machines. This is not applied for the traditional 3-tier storage. Perhaps you already know all the pain points that the traditional storage has. You cannot scale them. Basically, you need to replace them and adding even more complexity to your data center. Also, speaking of unique features, I must mention data locality. Data locality basically means that optimal storage performance. So the data is served locally from the node where the app is being executed, because HCI is basically a distributed system, and the application are running on all nodes in the cluster, and data is shared across the cluster. So instead of fetching data across the network, the data is served locally, where the specific virtual machine is being executed. So there is reduced network latency and increased performance, and the app's performance and the user experience are better. At all time, regardless of what happened to your cluster, perhaps something unfortunately like a drive fails, or if an entire node fail, or even part of a cluster, if a virtual machine it fails, whatever happens, data is always protected. It is a solution designed to run enterprise application in production without any problem. So the entire cluster is continuously healing. Whenever failure is detected, the healing process starts immediately. And again, this is different compared to the other ACI solutions that need more waiting time. For example, VMware need to wait 1 hour, or Cisco HyperFlex needs to wait for 2 hours. But within Nutanix, when a failure is detected, the healing process begins immediately. Why is so fast? Without going into details, there is a distributed metadata and a fine grade of cluster inventory plus failure detection. For Nutanix, failure is not a stressful event, and all the nodes are doing heavy lifting and rebuilding the data. There is no parity calculation, and the process is quite fast because the metadata is distributed as well, and lost replicas are identified, and data is recalculated and rebuilt efficiently. It's the same with data protection. Data from your single primary cluster can be replicated to a disaster recovery site, giving real-time protection or asynchronous protection, like a couple of minutes or half an hour, depending on the use case. In case you do not want to invest in a secondary data center and go with disaster recovery as a services, there is an option to replicate to the cloud, a native cloud disaster recovery called Leap. And with a secondary data center, a second Nutanix cluster can participate in mutual protection. And of course, there is a huge ecosystem of players like Commvault or Cohesity, and even a data protection solution called Haiku. So you have a lot of possibilities also in this area. Now let's talk briefly into security. With the security, so the infrastructure was designed to be secure from ground up, enforcing the best practices during deploying, and furthermore, following all the best practices when it comes to data VM management. On top of it, you have the ability of doing the security updates and patching in an extremely easy way, as you will see in the next slides. There is an additional services like Nutanix Flow, which enables you to tie in your network communication. It enables you to have visibility across the app workflow. You can see, for example, on the flow networking, what is happening in the cluster, the communication between apps, and take measures. You can quarantine or you can isolate applications. There is even a distributed firewall that is enabled within the cluster. And of course, Nutanix have the same partners and additional players in this area to give you a better, even better experience. I've mentioned management and updates. So the unified management console called Prism have a complete lifecycle management capabilities built in. What does it mean? It means that you can patch all 3 software components, firewall for hardware, hypervisor, and the Nutanix software directly from Prism, and the complete process is simplified and streamlined. All you need to do is to check the components that you need to update, and Nutanix will make sure that all the elements are mutually compliant to apply the update in the correct way. The upgrades are also possible and managed one node at a time, so there is no service downtime. VMs are automatically moved from the selected host that you need to upgrade. After the upgrades unfolds for all 3 components in the right order, and then it reboots the node and rebalances the VMs, and the process continues to the next node and so on. So there is no need for service downtime. Everything is simplified, streamlined, and rolling online updates. When it comes to infrastructure management, traditionally you have multiple components like the server, the storage, or the monitoring app. With Nutanix, all these different consoles are combined into one with Prism. So Prism is doing everything for you. It's doing hardware inventory infrastructure. It's doing monitoring the usage level on the compute, on the storage the same. Is monitoring the performance of your infrastructure. is monitoring your VM appliance, and so on. Of course, this is where you can manage all the resources as well. Here you can create storage containers, you can create VMs, or even you can expand or update the cluster. So from an end user point of view, if you have any experience with any other service or storage vendor, you will feel right at home. Even for beginner, the learning curve is moderate, and once logged in to this, everything seems very easy and very user-friendly and intuitive. You can learn this platform very, very fast. It doesn't require heavy trainings or massive help to learn it. In a few words, let's say, is a self-explained product. And now I will let us also Goran to continue this presentation. So Goran.
Thank you, Vivian. Thanks. Let me share my screen, and good morning from my side as well to everyone. All right. So once you have the infrastructure in place, which Octavian discussed up until this point, you need to start managing it, right? And one thing about Nutanix is that it is huge on so-called proactive management. So it's not just about centralized management, but it's all about getting the help from the machine to help us manage the machines, basically. Octavian mentioned the machine learning, and we are using the machine learning at each and every layer within the platform to help you in planning, to help you in operating, and to help you in scaling the solution. But before all that, which we'll discuss in a matter of minutes, everything starts with the provisioning, right? Once you have infrastructure in place, you need to provision some workloads, some applications. And even here, we can provide you with so-called marketplace portals where you or your end users can provision the infrastructure themselves without you as a central IT team being in the way. Of course, you stay in full control, but you let them provision their own workloads. Of course, again, you define all of the constraints, the resource quotas and stuff like that. So everything starts with the automated provisioning. We provide you with the self-service portal. All of the templates are already baked in, built in. You can build your own templates and you start from there. Once you deploy workloads and applications, then you start managing them and basically optimizing them, load balancing them, moving them around according to the resource utilizations within your environments. So again, we are using this across the stack. We'll just now do a little bit of deep dive at each and every stack in this lab. So what specifically can you do with this automated proactive management? Well, first you need to monitor various levels like management layer, storage layer, hypervisor layer, stuff like that. And we do cross-section, cross-layer monitoring, and we are correlating the information from different layers in order to bring you with the, let's say, highest quality information possible. Because this is the biggest issue in IT. The applications themselves, they're not correlated with the underlying infrastructure. So just because your infrastructure is working does not mean that your users are happy. And Nutanix helps you in bridging the gap between the two. Next, as I mentioned, you can automate a bunch of different tasks like installing operating systems, deploying them based on templates, deploying databases, configuring databases, you name it. In day two operations, once the applications are rolling, your users are leveraging those apps, we can help you with the cost management. Basically, we can optimize the resources for some specific workloads. And it can go either ways. Like we can increase the resources if the quality service levels are not adequate, or we could decrease the resources if you are let's say, overspending, if there is too much headroom provisioned resources on your apps. And lastly, your infrastructure is always, if you allow it, of course, connected to Nutanix services, which means that you have proactive remediation of any issues that arises. We're talking here about like some trivial issues. If your hard drive fails, if your memory fails, we can detect that even before you, right? And Nutanix, because you have support contract, Nutanix will ship you with the spare parts immediately without you even realizing. Of course, we can monitor the performance degradations as well, and we'll let you know about those issues when they come up via email, via syslog, whatever you have configured. Next, when it comes to planning, with Prism Pro feature set, you are allowed to do completely proactive forecasting of your resources. So based on your current resource utilization, based on your resource usage trends, Nutanix will apply machine learning, and it will let you know, based on your rate of new resource consumption, when will you deplete your resources in a matter of 1 year or 2 years time. So you can plan ahead. You can be smart when it comes to planning. Also here, at this point, you can do various what-if analysis. Like maybe you know that in 1 year's time, you will need to spin up a new project and you will need some amount of resources. Those resources can be based on your existing applications, or it could be some new resources that you plan to deploy in 1 or 2 years' time. And we cross-correlate everything, like the existing resources, the rate of usage, together with these what-if scenarios, future workloads that is, and we'll let you know when will you run out of resources. Maybe you don't need to buy anything. Maybe you're fine as it is. If you do need to expand your infrastructure, the Nutanix will do the sizing for you, and it will let you know how you can optimally right-size your infrastructure expansion. So you don't need to overspend. This is a big thing when you compare this with the way how we do traditional infrastructure management and scaling individually, silo by silo, storage independently from the compute, etc. This is a complete game changer, complete different way of doing things. Both business and technical people like this approach, because you are on the safe side and you are not overspending. It's like the best of both worlds. Traditional, what happens, we over provision infrastructure just to be on the safe side, you know. We don't need to do this anymore. After that, when your applications are in place, we can, as I briefly mentioned, we can detect if there are some virtual machines, some applications which are underutilized. Maybe we can trim the resources provided to them. Or maybe you have some applications which are quite heavy on your infrastructure, and they are basically being a sort of bully applications, and they are jeopardizing the performance of some other apps. We can detect those automatically, and we can do the load balancing of your workloads across the Nutanix cluster in order to keep everybody happy. And again, we can adjust the resources like CPU, memory, etc., provided to each VM automatically. Or maybe you have some VMs which are just running without any users connected, without any load being generated to that VMs. Who knows, whatever reason, maybe some obsolete old project and somebody forgot to delete the VMs. We'll let you know so you can delete those resources maybe and basically tidy up behind yourself and free up some of the resources for your future apps. When it comes to automation, again, starting with the basic infrastructure provisioning, like automating the provisioning of VMs, installing operating systems, deploying apps within those operating systems, defining users. We can also act on specific actions, like if you have some specific load on some app, we can start spinning up new workloads, new VMs, because you want to scale out. So the world is yours, really. We leverage the so-called playbooks. The playbooks are nice graphical ways how you can define your automation workflows without you having to code anything. Of course, in the background, this is being translated to automated code, to scripts, but you as an administrator, you don't have to know coding to automate end-to-end application provisioning. When it comes to monitoring, we monitor, of course, as I mentioned, the entire infrastructure stack, like the hardware layer, the virtualization, the storage layer. But we also take a look within the VMs themselves, like traditional Windows and Linux-based metrics on the operating system level. We can monitor those. And again, I don't have a specific slides for that because there's no time to discuss it here, but we can cross-correlate the information across different stacks and pinpoint what is the specific issue. So maybe you have changed something on your infrastructure and that caused the performance degradation of your apps. We can detect that and let you know. And if it is some system issue, you are automatically connected to the Nutanix support, to the Nutanix knowledge base as well, and we let you know, like immediately within the prism that Octavian mentioned, we let you know what is the probable root cause behind this issue that you are having. If you cannot sort it out yourself, you can directly contact Nutanix support. For some specific applications, like the most commonly used apps like databases, web servers and stuff, we can actually peer within the app layer itself. So not just on the VM level and monitor the system parameters of each VM, like CPU, memory, and stuff like that, but we can monitor the application-specific metrics. Like for a SQL Server, we can monitor the number of active concurrent users, the storage performance metrics, but from the application perspective, the memory footprint, which is being leveraged by the SQL servers and so on. When it comes to multi-cloud infrastructure, and one thing to note is that when Nutanix says cloud, they basically refer to any infrastructure out there. It also includes your on-premise infrastructure, which is basically your private cloud with Nutanix, but it includes public cloud providers as well. And majority of our tools are cloud agnostic. They are infrastructure transparent. They're independent of the infrastructure that you are managing with Nutanix. Again, we support Nutanix on-prem with various hypervisors, as Octavian mentioned, VMware ESXi, Citrix Zen Server, Microsoft, of course, Hyper-V, but we also have our own hypervisor, AHV, which is based on KVM, and we give it completely free of charge. We don't charge for the hypervisor. We believe the hypervisor is a commodity. So, regardless of your infrastructure footprint, whether you have a single data center, multiple your own data centers, or a hybrid environment like mix between on-prem and public clouds, we treat that as a unified pool of resources, and we can cross-optimize across different infrastructure tiers. When it comes to backup and disaster recovery, Octavia mentioned some of the solutions. So we have of course partnered with the traditional players in this space like Veeam and so on, Commvault. But we also have some native built-in solutions like Haiku, which is purposely built just for Nutanix. We support various scenarios like maybe you have a secondary site and you want to leverage that just for asynchronous protection, or maybe you want to build a stretched cluster configuration where a single cluster is stretched across 2 physical sites and you want to have a real-time protection. Or maybe you don't want to invest in secondary site at all. Maybe you want to leverage disaster recovery as a service and back up the data in one of the Nutanix data centers. This is an option as well. When it comes to just backup, not disaster recovery, again, we have multiple solutions here. We have pre-packaged hardware and software backup solutions, basically backup appliances, which are called Mine. They are provided by us for you, so you don't have to worry about the sizing, the installation, the integration, stuff like that. Everything is working in a matter of a couple of clicks. So we've streamlined we eliminated the complexity and the guesswork out of the disaster recovery and the backup processes. And as I mentioned, when it comes to hybrid cloud, most of our tools like Beam, Calm, etc., which are used for automation and the optimization, they are cloud agnostic. But we also have something which is called clusters, Nutanix clusters. And what is this? This is basically you renting out hardware from public cloud providers. We are integrated with AWS and Azure on this one, which basically means that you can have your own full-fledged Nutanix cluster, but it's just that it is not hosted on-prem, sitting within your own data center, because maybe you don't have a data center, or maybe you don't have enough resources, whatever, you don't have enough power. But rather you are renting out physical bare metal hardware machines on AWS or Azure. And of course, you get not just the hardware, but the entire Nutanix software stack integrated on that hardware. So with this, there's no CapEx whatsoever. You have the full-fledged Nutanix power of your own Nutanix cluster, but it is hosted in the cloud. You are renting it out. It's a dedicated hardware cluster. This is not a shared multi-tenant cloud stuff. This is something new. We started this like a year ago, a year and a half, and we see quite a lot of traction behind this one. It's an interesting use case. Maybe not that much in our part of the world, but in Western Europe, definitely. But as everything else, it's this deployment option is definitely slowly but surely coming to our part of the world as well. So when it comes to public cloud, again, you don't have to use it at all. If you are happy with your on-prem environment, just continue using it. But if maybe at some point of time later on, you do want to leverage public cloud, then you have a couple of options how you can do that. Maybe you run out of some resources on on-prem environment, you didn't budget appropriately, and you need to start some new project, then you can expand to cloud just for that specific project. Or maybe you want to leverage cloud just as a archiving target, or do a disaster recovery in the cloud. Or maybe you want to split your application infrastructure, like you want to keep the databases on-prem, but you want to push the load balancers, the web servers and stuff, which is more user-centric. You want to push that on the public cloud. So various use cases how you can leverage public cloud. When it comes to a couple of marketing slides, I think they are in order because they are actually usable, valuable. When it comes to Nutanix, we were the first one, so we are the leaders, but we are more important, we are the pioneers. We started back in the day. Nutanix was founded in 2009, which is the one of the very, very first HCI vendors out there. We shipped the first production-ready product in 2012, so 10 years ago. So we were pioneers. We kept on innovating, and we kept the leadership position. One of the big differences, aside from all of the technical stuff that Octavian mentioned, like the consolidation, the efficiency, the ease of use, the performance with data locality, aside of all those technical stuff, where we provide you with basically with all of this added efficiency and performance levels, basically you get the higher TCO. Basically, the biggest difference between Nutanix and the rest of the pack is that we are focusing just on this. We don't have like networking portfolio, some additional products that we are shipping. No, we are focusing just on the HCI and the products built on top of that infrastructure to help you basically focus on the apps and not on the infrastructure. So we do need infrastructure, we get that, but nobody wants to spend days managing it. The infrastructure should be a means to an end. It should not be an end to itself. And this is the biggest, from my perspective, biggest differentiation between Nutanix and the quote-unquote competition. Regarding the figures, these are even higher now. So we have more than 20K production-ready customers, not clusters, but rather customers across the world. Of course, one of the big strengths behind Nutanix, because we are focusing just on this, we have an extremely dedicated support staff. The support team is based in Amsterdam and in Belgrade as well. And our NPS score, Net Promoter Score, is over 90. It says 90 here. It's over 90 for the last 6 consecutive years, which is quite a testament if you consider that the averages in our industry for the NPS score are something around between 30 and 40 points. That basically says it all, about the quality of the Nutanix support. And I can testify myself. We've done multiple deployments across our region. Once you get the Nutanix engineer, so the first engineer which gets assigned to you, and you get the engineer immediately, you don't get some support staff, some layer one support staff. That engineer stays with you throughout the life cycle of your tickets. And this is a huge thing. When it comes to customers, again, 20K customers across all really industry verticals. You name the vertical, will bring the badges basically, because we've been in this business for more than 10 years. So we have the more than relevant credentials here. When it comes to workload, of course, everything started with the VDI workloads, virtual desktop infrastructure. But these days we are running the mission critical workloads like SAP HANA, the various other database services, the web servers, the CRMs, you name it. Everything is being consolidated, run on Nutanix as well. And still, we have not even touched the software development side of things. So we are huge on Kubernetes, on software development. So if you are a developer, you're welcome on board. We have a lot to discuss how we can support you with your DevOps environments. Just a few nuggets to remember, to takeaways. We provide hardware consolidation and software simplification on top of that. With this, it means that you're not wasting money on the hardware, and the ease of management with the software-driven infrastructures and applied machine learning is there for you. So you're not wasting time as an administrator. We support any workload out there. We can also be your data provider. So Nutanix is basically a storage platform as well. So aside from hosting your applications, you can leverage Nutanix as a pure storage platform for storing data for some external workloads, like external databases, external hypervisors, you name it. We provide various storage interfaces like block, file layer, object layer, you name it. And throughout all of this, we keep you with your freedom of choice. So you choose the hardware, you choose the hypervisor, and you choose the cloud if you want. Just a few nuggets. Basically, we've gone through them all. So the hardware consolidation, the software simplification, we are heavily leveraging the machine learning and automation. Of course, as Octavian mentioned, the entire infrastructure is self-healing. Whatever fails, whatever component on a hardware or a software level, we self-heal automatically. And we are the best in the industry when it comes to resiliency. No wait times, as Octavian was kind enough to point out. We start healing immediately. And we understand that you probably have some workloads already in place. We provide you with all of the tools how you can non-intrusively and easily migrate those workloads from traditional infrastructures into the Nutanix. Some of the figures, these are figures which are published by the IDC. If you're interested in learning more, there's a link there. We'll definitely share the presentation so you can find out more. I'm not going to focus on specific numbers. What I will say though is that basically with Nutanix, because of this hardware consolidation and software simplification, the TCO, the total cost of ownership, is extremely optimized. This is what we bring to the table. So you don't waste the money on the unnecessary money on the hardware. You don't waste the money on the hypervisor licenses, and you don't waste time. Time translates to the in the end, it translates to the money being spent in managing your infra. And as the British gents say, the proof is in the pudding. So don't trust my word on it. I invite you all to try it out yourself. There's a test drive, which is a 2 hours instance of Nutanix, which you can schedule at your own leisure. All you need is a business email. Nothing else. This is the link here. So feel free to go there and schedule your session. You will get the link via the email directly, and you can play around with Nutanix and get a feel how it looks like in real life. And with that, I would like to thank you for your patience and your energy. If there are any questions, they are definitely more than welcome here. Whatever is of interest to you from the business side, from the more technical side, do let us know, please.
Thank you very much, Goran. I just wanted 2 minutes to wrap up from a business perspective. So we were speaking about hybrid multi-cloud, meaning this flexibility, in fact, to use your own infrastructure, a modern one, not a 3-tier type infrastructure, but a consolidated one, and also the flexibility to go beyond on-prem and to use public clouds and then come back. So this is in terms of workload, this is in terms of disaster recovery, and this is what gives businesses today their agility and their maybe their continuity from a production or operational perspective, which today, again, it's extremely important. You have to keep not only customers, so external customers satisfied, but also people at the interior of the organization. So providing them with the resources they can leverage to make the business successful is a must. Okay, that was what I wanted to sum up. So now we have a question, Octavian, Goran.
Yes,
so,
I'm just I saw it. I'm fetching the relevant document to Alexandra. Sorry. If you can share your email, Alexandra, that would be awesome, because then I can share additional docs to you. I'm not sure if I will be able to fetch it in real time for you. You can provide me an email in a private chat, and it will take me like 5 minutes to fetch the relevant docs to you, and I will share everything. The biggest thing when it comes to let's say joining the cloud club is that there is a saying, measure twice or 3 times before making a decision, because public cloud is great, but for some workloads, like if you're not sure really that how long are you going to run some workload, you're not sure whether you have adequate performance on-premise, adequate resources, then public cloud is great, like for temporary workloads, testing something and so on. But if you have a well-known app that you know that you're going to run for a year or more, that you know the resource requirements of that app, then really it's more beneficial from both economic and, of course, control perspectives to have that hosted within your on-prem. This is the short answer. This is the biggest misconception when it comes to public clouds, because there are additional costs which are incurred during the lifetime of running your apps on the public cloud, which is not stated initially. Like the price that you see with the public cloud, this is the price to join the public cloud club. Like this is not the price by the end of the month. This is the minimal price. This is the starting price. This is the biggest difference, and this is where people get. I'm not going to say fooled, but really they get the wrong misconception. The biggest difference, we have a nice question from Iana. The biggest difference when you compare us to the traditional storages, with traditional storages, every couple of years you have to rip and replace everything, because you cannot scale it out. You even though you could technically replace the controllers within the storage arrays, it's not cost effective to do, because every storage vendor out there will force you via discounts to purchase a new model. So there's no evolution in your infrastructure. Every couple of years you have to replace everything. With Nutanix, this is not the case. You can, Octavian mentioned heterogeneous clusters. So let's say after 3 years, you decide that you need more storage heavy infrastructure or more compute heavy infrastructure for that matter. You just add that additional node which resources of that node is tailored to your need at that particular point in time. So you can evolve your hardware infrastructure. Think about Google, like we had Gmail for a service since like 2005. And who knows how many times over and over again has Google replaced the entire infrastructure underneath the Gmail as a service, and we have not noticed downtime. And of course, Google at no point in time has said, okay, we need to shut down everything. We need to bring a completely new infrastructure in place. This is not how cloud providers operate. And this is the biggest difference. So you can optimize resources according to your needs. You don't need to plan ahead for like 5 years, and you don't need to waste resources. You know what happens with, I used to work in service provider, and I used to mention the storage arrays. The biggest one fear was that we will not have enough either capacity or performance. So we over provision. And what happens is that in the first couple of years, like first 2 or 3 years, your storage array is completely underutilized. This is really a waste of money, of everything. This is a bad way of doing infrastructure size. So I think the differences are a world apart. No, there is a question, do we think the blockchain will replace cloud computing? No, short answer, no. I mean, we need infrastructure. We need somewhere to run the apps. We're not going to let, the reason why cloud computing has not, like public clouds have not taken over so fast. You remember 10 years ago, everybody started saying public cloud will take over everything. Nobody is going to purchase anything anymore. 10 years forward, we see that this is not the case. Rather it's vice versa, you know. People want to maintain control for security reasons, for performance reasons, you name it. We have a big, if you follow the industry, like in UK, the healthcare and the various other government services, they're actually starting to backpedal from public cloud. So UK was one of the pioneers back in the day, like 2012, something like that. They shifted a bunch of government workloads, applications to public cloud. They adopted cloud first policy. But after a couple of years of running the apps there and picking up the build for that, you know, they gone back to the drawing table and basically they are backpedaling from public cloud. Not that it's necessarily something wrong from public cloud, but it comes down to cost control. We can be more efficient than public cloud providers. Good questions. Good questions.
We have any more questions for today? It would appear not. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. As I say, if this is being recorded, so if you want to listen again, look on the Chamber website. I hope that this has been interesting for all our audience. I think you've certainly kept people asking interesting questions at the end of the session. So thank you very much indeed. And of course, if there are more questions for you, your contact details are available. We know where you live, as they say. We can contact you through the Chamber. So thank you all very much indeed. Thank you to my colleagues at Madalina, Anna and Stefan for making the arrangements for today's session. If I can just draw your attention to the chat box, and I'm putting the link for our next webinar, which is about making the most of your investment in CRM. That's a fairly important matter, and that is being dealt with by Retina. You'll follow that link, you'll find the page of the Chamber's website dealing with that particular webinar. Now, we try and be very punctual. We're on the hour. So can I wish you all a very good day and the rest of the week. Gentlemen, Ixodron, thank you very much for your presentation today. Very enjoyable and informative. And to the team at the BRCC, thank you very much indeed. Let's get together for the next chamber event. Thank you all very much indeed. Uzibuna.
Thank you very much, BRCC. Thank you for your participation and all the best.
Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.